Hi friends, this is Chris Beckman. I'm the corporate chaplain for Ebenezer, and this is our series of reflections during this time of COVID, and we hope you've been finding these enjoyable. We've enjoyed making them, and we hope they're providing just a little bit more support and care for our residents and their families, and for our staff and all the people that make up our Ebenezer family. Today's reflection is number 35 in our series, and I've titled this reflection, Old Monk, Young Monk. Old Monk and Young Monk. One of my favorite stories from a Buddhist tradition is called Old Monk, Young Monk. And the story is about two monks, religious figures, one old and one young. And they're walking along a dirt road one day, and there's quite a bit of mud on the road because it has rained. And they keep walking and get to a small town, and as they get to the small town, a carriage pulls up. And it's a carriage that clearly is owned by a very wealthy person. And this woman sticks her head out of the carriage and says, "I need to cross this muddy path. One of you need to help me," she says to the monks. And the young monk kind of looks down, and the old monk just walks over to the carriage, puts the woman on his shoulders, and helps her to cross over the muddy path with her beautiful clothes. He sets her down, and she storms off. And she actually even says, "Well, that wasn't very gentle," to the old monk. And her carriage pulls off, and the lady walks off, and the two monks are left, and they begin walking again. The old monk and the young monk. They walk out of town, and they start to put yards and miles behind them and the town. And after an hour or two of walking, the old monk notices that the young monk is kind of upset. And the young monk goes to the old monk, "Wasn't that a horrible lady that we just met? She was terrible. She had no courtesy, no kindness. And then you went ahead and carried her across the muddy path, and she didn't even say thank you to you. How can you be okay when she was so mean to you and didn't even say thank you?" Well, the old monk turned to the young monk, and he said, "Well, it seems like you're still carrying her with you. I put her down hours ago." "You seem to still be carrying the woman. I put her down several hours ago." I love that story. It is so true when it was written, and it's so true to now. Sometimes I am the old monk and come from a place of wisdom and experience and compassion and do the right thing, and then I'm able to let it go, even in the face of not being treated well. I am able to do that every so often. I would say, though, usually I am more like the young monk, who can see the injustice, can see the lack of care, can see the grudging nature of some parts of humanity, and then not be able to put it down. I wish I had an easier time of setting it down. I usually don't have any trouble picking up the person and carrying them across, but sometimes I have trouble letting go of it and setting it down. What the old monk was saying to the young monk is, who is it really hurting? The lady that I carried across the road, she's long gone. She's probably not thinking twice about this. And yet here you are, my young friend, who you didn't even carry the woman. I did. You didn't even encounter it. You watched it. And yet here you are still carrying that burden all of these hours later. Who is it really hurting? Her or you? Now, this is one of those things that's way easier to say than to do. And part of our journey of life and faith is figuring out ways to set it down and to let it go. I find myself during this time of the pandemic saying to myself and to people I encounter, let's find ways to hold this gently and kindly and with grace. And I'm saying that all of the time because it is so hard to do. Even if we're the kind that might pick it up and carry it, it's the part that stays with us, the judgment and the concern and the begrudging nature of doing things that eats away at us. So the invitation again, dear friends, is to try to be gentle and kind during this moment, to celebrate the times when we actually are the old monk, where we do something and we set it down and it no longer bothers us. I'm hoping as I get older and wiser that those moments will increase. But it might take an intentional process of trying to create that and live into that. This time of pandemic has given us more opportunities than maybe we care to admit to, of picking things up that we didn't want to and carrying them across muddy streets. And maybe the journey, the end point, the real hope for me to you and for all of us is that you find the grace to set it down and to walk on with less burden, with less worry, with less concern, with less judgment. Now, how many times am I the old monk? And how many times am I the young monk? I'm way too often the young monk. But that's not defeating because I can see the old monk and I want to be more like him. And I'm trying to take steps to move in that direction. And hopefully when I look back on this time of pandemic, I will see more wisdom from the old monk and see more examples of where I live that out in my life and in my faith. Blessings on the journey ahead, dear friends, and I hope you find that old monk near and dear to your heart. Bye for now.